Hi, this is Mr. D'Ambrosio, and welcome to my podcast on cellular respiration. Today we're going to learn how ATP is produced. All right, ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate, and it is represented by this picture here. And here we have three phosphate groups. So that's why they call it triphosphate or adenosine triphosphate. When ATP is used by our cells, one of these phosphates is broken off, energy is released, and then we are left with a molecule called ADP, adenosine diphosphate, because now there are two phosphates. So there are two processes that fall under this, under cellular respiration. The first one is aerobic, and the other one is anaerobic respiration. What the difference between the two is that aerobic respiration requires oxygen. Anaerobic respiration does not. Okay? No oxygen required. So what we're going to talk about is how this occurs. So let's clear this, go to the next slide. And if you remember from the beginning of the year, we learned about the mitochondria. And the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell because it creates ATP. And now they believe that it used to be its own living organism, living on its own, and that somehow it got incorporated into the cell, and the cell kept it because it makes ATP, so it would be some type of symbiotic relationship. But there are three parts to this that we need to be familiar with. The black line on the outside represents the outer membrane. This one here is the inner membrane, or the cristae. And here is the intermembrane space. So if you notice, the cristae is folded. And that's an advantage to the cristae, because if we take a look at, if we can imagine that if this was the mitochondria, and instead of having a folded cristae, that the cristae was smooth and flat, if we were to look at an area, let's say this big, we could see that the cristae, because it's folded here, there's more membrane here to make ATP, where there's less of a membrane here because it's only a straight line. So the folds increase surface area to maximize the amount of ATP that's produced. So let's take a look at the steps of aerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration, we're going to require oxygen. There are three steps involved. The first one is called glycolysis. In this step, glucose is split. Glucose comes from the food we eat, and when it splits, we wind up with 2 pyruvic acids and 4 ATP. So we have 4 ATP total. Now, what will happen is we're going to go into the next step. So like I said, this is in the cytoplasm, so we got to get this pyruvic acid in to the mitochondria, and it has to pay a toll to get in. And it uses 2 molecules of ATP. So here's this ADP I was talking about before. So whenever you see ADP, you know that is used energy. So the pyruvic acid comes into the mitochondria, and we have the first step in the mitochondria, or the second step in the process, and pyruvic acid is converted to acetyl-CoA. And this acetyl-CoA is going to go through many reactions, but what we want to focus on is that we'll wind up with hydrogens, carbon dioxide, and 2 more molecules of ATP. This carbon dioxide is exhaled, and the hydrogen here is going to combine with a carrier molecule called NAD to become NADH. Now, before we continue, let's take a look. So we have 2 ATP here, 2 ATP here. This ATP we're not counting because it was used in the process. So we have right now a gain of 4 molecules of ATP. The carbon dioxide that was created, this is a waste product, and this is removed. All right, so if you think about this, the easiest way to rationalize this is if you go to work and you make $4 for your job for that day, but it costs you $2 to get there, how much money did you make? You only made $2, right? So here, the cell made 6 molecules of ATP, but it cost 2 to make it. So there's a net gain here of 4 molecules of ATP so far. So now, what will happen is this carrier molecule is going to carry this hydrogen over to the next step in the mitochondria, which is known as the electron transport chain. Okay, so here the hydrogen is going to go through a series of steps, and as it goes through here, it's going to create 32 molecules of ATP. At the end, at the end of these reactions, there's going to be an oxygen, and when 2 of those hydrogens go through, we're going to wind up with water, H2O. Okay, so now we have 32 molecules of ATP created from the electron transport chain. We have 2 molecules from the Krebs cycle and 2 molecules from glycolysis. So we have a total of 36 molecules of ATP produced by aerobic respiration. So what I'd like you to do is go back to the Schoology site. You're going to see that there is a graph there that I want you to print. Looks like this. I want you to go back to the video, and I want you to fill this in and come back in class with this. Come back to class with this. And I also want you to think about anaerobic respiration. Now, anaerobic respiration is done by bacteria and yeast. The type of anaerobic respiration that's done by yeast is called fermentation. So I have a little video here that I want you to watch. Okay, so here you can see that I have a flask, and in this flask I put in warm water, sugar, yeast, and then I put a balloon on the top. And let's just take a look at this right now, how this works. Now this is time-lapse video. This took approximately 45 minutes, and I want you to pay attention to the balloon. All right, so the balloon is filling up. So what I want you to do is, for homework, is I want you to fill out that chart, and I want you to look up the process of fermentation and what it's used for, and what gas is in the balloon. And we'll talk about anaerobic respiration after you watch this video.